today. All right, well, I'm glad you're here, and we'll get started in about 10 minutes. What's that? No. I'm waiting. Yes. Okay, there we go. Okay, so one more quick announcement that I forgot the first time I was up here. You have cards at your table. You have an opportunity to write questions on those cards if you'd like to ask the Lieutenant Governor something. We'll pick those cards up and make sure we save time to get to your questions. I'd love for us to begin with our President and CEO, Carrie Watkins, give you a proper welcome. If you would, please give her a hand.
Thank you guys for being here in the midst of summer, and we're happy to have our friends here from the young youth, and we'll talk about them in a second. But just you'll join me for a moment of silence. Remember those who were killed, those who survived, and those changed forever on April 19th, 1995. Thank you, thank you. So we've got some students here from the Federal Bar Group, and Stephen will refer to them in a bit. A little bit, this is week 2 of Civic season. We had John Meacham here last week as we kicked that off and closed out our capital campaign for Forward and celebrated that with the donors. This really is a tradition that unites the oldest federal holiday with the newest, both Independence Day and Juneteenth. The goal is to mobilize a movement to understand our past and shape our future through civics. And we think on this sacred ground, what happened in 1995 was political violence, and we want to make sure people don't forget it, but we also want to make sure we relate current day issues to what happened here and try to always gain an understanding of why and how people think that violence can result in positive change. When really sitting around the table working out the differences is how we do that. As you guys all know, next week we'll celebrate the 250th birthday of America, and we'll reflect on what that does and how it fits into our story. And then we are in the midst of celebrating 100 years of Route 66. And so that really is the important part of just this mother road that goes, I think Oklahoma has more drivable miles than any other state. And it really does allow us kind of a flashback to the good old days, what we call them, and when life was maybe a little simpler. But how and why does that road still make a difference today, 100 years later? And why are people in the museum today that are driving across country on a tour to understand and to see the Mother Road? So we asked Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell to join us. He has been in I think his 8th year as Lieutenant Governor, and he has been a strong advocate for tourism in Oklahoma, probably the best I've seen. I mean, he's followed some great lieutenant governors, the likes of George Nye and Jerry Askins, Mary Fallon, but he has really poured his heart and soul into making sure people know what Oklahoma has to offer, and he does live and breathe the Oklahoma Standard: service, honor, and kindness. So I hope you'll join me in welcoming the Lieutenant Governor and Stephen, and we'll have a better conversation about Route 66 and all things Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Well, hello.
Really appreciate you
Thank you,
joining
Carrie.
us today.
Round of applause for Carrie Watkins.
Yeah.
We love Carrie. None of this happens without Carrie. Thank you, Carrie.
That is very true.
Yes.
So let's just jump right in. I think with this being the centennial, you're seeing Route 66 all over the place, and half the time you're there. You've put so much
That's
effort
good.
into preparing the state for the centennial. I'm wondering why this road still captures the imagination, really, of the globe.
Yeah. Well, it is global. That's the first thing that I would say. You know, it has been a blessing in a lot of ways to be the Lieutenant Governor, to be the Sales and Marketing Director for the state of Oklahoma. That's what I believe the Lieutenant Governor, as Carrie said, you know, George Nye was really my model. I ran on his platform. What George was, unarguably the best Lieutenant Governor in the history of the state of Oklahoma. Was a darn good governor too, but he was a Lieutenant Governor a very long time. And I followed his model and the way that he did lead as well, of being the Sales and Marketing Director for the state. And if you're going to be the Sales and Marketing Director for the state, you better know what there is in Oklahoma to sell. And I learned really, really quick that we have the most famous road in the world in Oklahoma. It is unquestionably as well the most famous road in the world. And we have, as Gary said, the most drivable miles of the most famous road in the world, more than any other state, more than Texas. Texas not even close. Arizona, New Mexico, they're great states, but they don't have what we have. We have the most attractions and the most miles of this road. So we better talk about it. You know, when you do a SWOT analysis of a community, your strengths, your weaknesses, you know, in any community has to do that. This stood out to me when I started looking at the state of Oklahoma and the tourism assets that we had. I said, we've got to double down on this. We've got to double down on Route 66. Now, to your point, for me to start with, it was the economics of the road. I mean, I was a politician, so I was, you know, looking at this road as, you know, kind of connecting, you know, A to B of, okay, more people show up, more money is spent, which certainly there's a place for that. I was a little naive, and Route 66 opened my eyes, the magic that is in this road, to have healthy conversations about who we are as Americans, where we came from, who we are today, and where we're going as a country. I had no idea about how powerful this road was, and the avenue that it gave us to have those conversations that we need to have as Americans. And that is what I've been so proud of, and what keeps me so excited. Yes, 100-year birthday, but it's just what that gives us the ability. It is an opportunity. All it is an opportunity, and we better take the opportunity. We have a responsibility because we have this road in our backyard. It just gives us now an opportunity to help truly change people's lives for the better, because you can have conversations when it comes to the main street of America, because that's what this is.
So you bring up Main Street of America.
Yes.
I don't know if everyone's familiar with that term.
Yeah.
Why do they call it the Main Street of America?
Yeah, well, it's the Mother Road, the Main Street of America. It has a lot of names. It has a lot of names. So the international tourists, and I was just talking to the team, I know there's a number of World Cup travelers that are actually in the museum today, which I love. You know, all of these international tourists that are in America right now for a bunch of football. Now, I'll say football, okay, because they refer to it as football. We'll say soccer, but it's football. The international tourists are really the ones that taught me this, because, you know, when international tourists from around the world, they absolutely love and are obsessed with Route 66, and for them, Route 66 is America. It is the Mother Road and that Main Street of America. The Main Street of America was really language that us in America kind of used, because it really did knit together the country 100 years ago. A very young, very restless country 100 years ago. It was really Route 66 that knit it all together, and it was dubbed kind of the Main Street of America. And what should happen on our main streets? Conversation from very diverse backgrounds, people that don't know each other, someone from Japan and someone from Weatherford, Oklahoma. There's not another road in this country that allows us to have that conversation. Truly, not another one. And there's different languages spoken in Oklahoma every weekend of the year. Route 66 is not cyclical. It is a 12-month out of the year tourism attraction now, which again is a very powerful thing to be able to say, and to have all of these different languages being spoken on this main street at a small little mom and pop shop, to have a conversation about America. Those are the stories, and that's what tourists want. They want that authentic American experience, to tell real stories, to not shy away from the history either, not gloss over. That's what's so powerful about this museum, is that we tell the right story the right way on this property, in this space. And Route 66 does the same thing. And I think that authenticity stands out. It stands out from a manufactured tourism experience. The people don't remember those stories. They do remember the Oklahoma Standard storyline. They remember the stories that you're going to hear at this museum, or again, meeting a small business owner that becomes a lifelong friend on Route 66.
So not just about getting from point A to point B.
It's not about point A to point
It's
B.
the stops along the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know I'm putting you on the spot a little
Sure.
bit, but do you have a story or something,
Yeah.
engaging with someone along the route that stands out to you?
Yeah, sure. I've told this story for the last 8 years. My staff knows this. My staff's in the back, by the way. So I was called by Reese Martin. So Reese Martin is the Route 66 Association president in Oklahoma. He's the Yoda of Route 66 here in Oklahoma. I've learned a lot of my Route 66 history from Mr. Reese Martin. Wonderful man, kind, one of the kindest men I've ever met. And he said, hey, there's a group of people coming to Oklahoma from the Czech Republic. And this was like week 1 on the job as lieutenant governor. But I campaigned on Route 66. I campaigned on tourism. So he knew, hey, we have an advocate now as lieutenant governor to talk about Route 66. Said, hey, will you take him to breakfast? And I said, hold on, there's a group from the Czech Republic Route 66 Association. There is such a thing. And so I showed up at a restaurant breakfast spot in Tulsa called Ollie's. It's got a train that goes around in this cute little breakfast spot in Tulsa. And I showed up early and I thought I was going to breakfast with like 5 or 6 guys from the Czech Republic. Oh, no. No, there was a whole bus that pulls up, and then about 15 Harleys behind the bus, and I don't know how many Czechs piled out of this van, all decked out in their Harley gear. It was Christmas morning for this group. I mean, the smiles on their faces. I mean, it looked like my kids when we went to Disney World, like, and I was just shocked. I was completely flabbergasted, and so I'm treating 30 or 40 Czechs to breakfast that morning. And again, it was hilarious. If you've met anybody from the Czech Republic, they have the biggest personalities, and they're just full of life. And I'm sitting there with Zdeněk. Of course, his name is Zdeněk. And I said, who is the president of the Route 66 Association in the Czech Republic, who has he's a radio DJ in Prague, a Route 66 radio program in the Czech Republic. So it just keeps getting better and better. And I said, what is it? Like, what is it about this road for you? And he said, well, it's very simple for us in the Czech Republic. 35 years ago, we were under communist regime in the Czech Republic. How quickly we forget. And he said, there was no such thing as a tourist when we were under communist regime. And when we listened to the radio, watched movies about America, it was Route 66 for us. That was America to us. And when we were freed from communism in the Czech Republic, the first trip we took to America was to Route 66 into Oklahoma. And for the last 32 years, Matt, I have been taking people from the Czech Republic to Oklahoma along Route 66. And I'm breaking out, in goosebumps as I'm listening to the story. Really, truly tearing up. It was emotional. And I just remember that. I said, Zdeněk, I'm going to be telling that story for the next 8 years, is the first thing that I said. But there's a lot of power in that. And there's a lot of other countries that say the same thing, in countries where there was no such thing as a tourist. But when they looked across the pond and when they learned about America, that mother road to them meant Route 66. That's what the Americana experience was to them. And so when they come to America, it's not New York City. It's a little bit of LA because Santa Monica is the end of Route 66. So they'll go there. They'll fly into Chicago or they'll fly into LA. But it's not the big tourism attractions that you will necessarily think about. They're not going there. They're flying their motorcycles to America and landing in Chicago or LA, and they're hitting this pavement that is Route 66 with these whimsical roadside attractions and small business owners that tell them about the true American story, that tell them about their grandparents opening this onion burger restaurant, 80 years ago because they didn't have enough money to operate anything else but an onion burger restaurant in El Reno, Oklahoma. That's what they want. They want that authentic American story. And you can't get that in a lot of places in America today, but you can get that on Route 66.
Very clearly an impact on those who come and travel the route. I'm wondering what you think the impact is on Oklahomans,
Sure.
right? Because they're the other side of that engagement.
Yeah. I mean, that's been quite the revolution the last 8 years as well. And my staff, works at 24/7 for me. We see a brown Route 66 sign. If you've grown up in Oklahoma, you've seen the sign. You've seen the brown historic Route 66 sign all across Oklahoma. Certainly a whole lot more now because I put up hundreds and hundreds more of those. Thank you, Oklahoma Department of Transportation and Tim Gatz, who helped me put up more of those signs. We didn't have the sign, not a rabbit trail here, but I am proud of this. We didn't have Route 66 signs. When you're going down I-44 and you see the exit to Wellston, it didn't have the historic Route 66 sign underneath that sign off the turnpike that said, hey, Route 66 this way. Michael Wallace has coined the phrase, life begins at the off-ramp. Life begins at the off-ramp. And I love that because I try to tell this next generation, slow down a little bit. It will reward you. It will reward you. Get off the turnpike. I'm completely transparent, and I will say that even if Tim Gatz and the Turnpike Authority was sitting right here. Get off the turnpike, get into Route 66, because that's where life happens. That's the good stuff, is getting off these turnpikes and meeting real people from the middle of the country where you're going to learn stories, you're going to learn something about your past, your present, and where we're going as a country. What we've done inside my Lieutenant Governor's office, and I'll give our Oklahoma Department of Tourism a lot of credit here too, is we're putting our money where our mouth is. So we recognize for the next generation to know what Route 66 is, you got to tell them about it. You got to reach them where they're at, and unfortunately, a lot of times it's tied to a phone or some digital ad that they're going to see somewhere. We were doing very little advertising before we took over there in the Lieutenant Governor's office, and that's completely flipped. So we're investing over $6 million a year in revitalization grants into the middle of America today, into these Route 66 communities. So a lot of money is being put into these communities to revitalize a roadside attraction. The Threet Filling Station in Luther, Oklahoma is a great example of this. It was one of the only African-American filling stations during the Civil Rights Movement on Route 66. The family has owned that and tried to protect it and preserve it for the last 40 or 50 years. They had no money to put into that filling station to help fix it. Well, now they do, because we gave them a grant. And now it's on the National Preservation sites as well. So we're getting busloads of people that are stopping at the Threet Filling Station today that were not doing that a year or two ago, because there wasn't anything there. So it's a perfect example of we're able to tell the next generation that story. We're advertising it. We're meeting them where they're at. Mm-hmm. They're geeking out on the neon just as much as the baby boomers are. So this Route 66 is not just for the baby boomers anymore, the baby boomer generation, that we love, by the way, because they control most of the disposable income in this country. About 80% of all disposable income is controlled by the baby boomers. So we love our baby boomers. But we want to hand the baton off to the next generation. Baby boomers want to hand that baton off to the next generation. And they're loving this road. They're geeking out on this road. I've got a girl in the Gaylord College at OU, and it was actually the Gaylord College and University of Oklahoma kids that helped put the advertising campaign together. And I always like to say that the logo that we created was a kid at the University of Oklahoma that created that for us. So I love it that we've pulled in that next generation. So to your point of, it means more to Oklahomans today than just that brown historic sign. We're making sure legislators know that there is, yes, a huge economic impact to it, because as I said, that does matter. Half of all sales tax collected in the state of Oklahoma is collected from a community that has a portion of Route 66. So it's kind of a big deal from a sales tax perspective as well. So all these different buckets of influencers in the state of Oklahoma, we've pulled every one of them in. And sometimes it takes a different pitch with different people, and we don't control it anymore. That might be the last point that I would make of what we're doing. This is not, we don't want this to be generic, that we want this to be authentic. We don't control it. We're going to empower them, certainly, down the road, but we want to keep that authentic American experience authentic and to tell the whole story, the good, the bad, the ugly, by the way. You tell the whole story. If you do, tourists will reward that honesty. And with that honesty comes the kindness behind it.
We'll get back to that in a second.
Yeah.
I want to point out that Route 66 passes just some blocks.
Yes, it does.
I don't think anyone would call this a roadside attraction, but all year round, we get Route 66 visitors. And I think that might not make sense to a lot of people, but you mentioned something earlier about how Route 66 is a symbol of freedom to so many. And here is a story of when freedom was threatened by an act of terrorism. I'm wondering what you think, why do so many traveling the mother road stop here, and is there a connection to what they're getting out of it?
Yeah, I absolutely think and know that there is a connection. That this place that you allow, again, space for change to happen has never been more relevant. Carrie and I talk about that so much. I mean, we're so proud of what this museum is to so many people and the lives that have been changed here. And yes, we remember, but we're in the change-making business here. This space and the conversations that we have here and the mission, the vision has never been more relevant because of the world that we live in today, because of the culture that we are in today, and because of that hate that does happen. It's always happened, but I think in 2026, it's never been more important to proactively have conversations with people not in your safe space, to talk to somebody that you don't agree with so that we can head off what happened here. If we don't have healthy conversations and better conversations, there will be another one of these. And that's my dramatic pause, by the way. There will be more hate, and unfortunately hate that will turn into people losing their lives if we don't proactively have better and healthier conversations in the United States of America. And in this space, this museum, it leads the way. It leads the way, and I've talked to the team here about this too. We don't want this to be the only place where better conversations are happening. But if we have to be the leader to lead in this so that a museum in Mississippi is having better conversations, to where a museum in New York City is having better conversations, then absolutely we're doing our job, right? We have to have those conversations, and I've seen it. I've seen it on Route 66 with a bunch of tough guys on Harleys at a burger joint having a conversation with, an 85-year-old woman serving them a burger, right? They would never have a conversation with the table next to them, someone from the Czech Republic or Canada or Japan. Those people would never interact in their entire lives if Route 66 did not bring them together. And so we have to know that we've been blessed. With blessing comes a responsibility to be able to lean into that and not just tell the warm and fuzzy that, roadside attractions, oddities, great building family memories, but leaning further in and having an actual conversation. What is it, how are things in Tokyo right now? How are things in, what is Oklahoma really like? Tell me about the Czech Republic. That conversation happens right here in this museum, and it happens on a road that, as you said, is just a couple blocks off of I think, truly one of the more important and impactful museum visions that we have in the United States today.
Do you think these interactions are important to democracy? Are we going to get that existential?
I absolutely believe that they are fundamental to democracy and preserving and protecting what we have here. I mean, it's a republic if you can keep it. And we don't pass it on in our bloodstream, right? I could throw out a lot of quotes, right? But we don't pass this on in the bloodstream. It is local leaders and volunteers that teach it to the next generation. And if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. And that there is history here. There's living history here. But if we don't learn about what happened here, how to avoid it moving forward, again, having those proactive, better conversations, and letting people copy this. As I said, I want people in other states to copy what we're doing here. We're the point of the spear, sure, because of what happened here, but never been more relevant. Never been more relevant. And the cool thing, Route 66 has never been more relevant. It's never been cooler. 100 years, we had a lot of people protect this, Michael Wallace being one of them, in the 80s and 90s, kind of writing books. We built the turnpikes, we built the highway system, and people, they bypassed it. Cars certainly was a moment in time that kind of told a little bit of that story, sure. But Pixar cars, sorry for the kids. But we see it every day. There's an event going on Route 66 that we don't know about. We've never been told about it, and we are just fine with that. That people are taking this and running with it. We just had every Route 66 state here in Oklahoma. We hosted kind of the Main Street Summit with all the Route 66 states a couple months ago, and had a number of meetings with all these different states. And they're looking to us. They're looking to Oklahoma. As we do it better because we have the most miles and we're investing real money in it, and all of our mayors and local leaders are really engaged in it. So it's another comparison to this museum, I think the other states look at Oklahoma as the leader when it comes to Route 66. I think other states that want to have better proactive conversations to stop hate and turn hate the other way into humility and kindness, they're looking at this museum as the leader there and taking direction from this space.
Well, I certainly hope so. So do you think the Oklahoma Standard that was revealed in the response to the bombing, is that alive and well? And is that part of it too, is the reason why Oklahoma kind of takes the lead in that way? Yeah,
there was a time, I think it was Ackerman and McQueen, in the late 80s, 90s, they kind of tried to redub Oklahoma and Oklahoma City the Big Friendly. And I'm an advertising guy. That was my background. And I think we have a brewery in Oklahoma. Well, I know we have a brewery in Oklahoma City, the Big Friendly, which I think is great. What were they? They were leaning into this, right? They were leaning in it a little too. Like we want our hospitality to be a draw for Oklahoma. We want to say that we're the friendliest state in the country. I want to believe that. I know we're the most diverse state in the country, and it's not even close. 39 sovereign nations inside of one state. That's just our sovereigns. And then you add all, again, our Native American, African American, Hispanic cultures, Asian American cultures. That is a pride point. That is something we should lean further into, that we are more diverse than anybody else in both our landscapes. We have 12 different ecosystems in the state of Oklahoma. If you didn't know it, kids, we are. So I've leaned heavily into the diversity that we have here in Oklahoma. Diversity is not a negative word. That is a positive thing that is drawing people in. But I do think the hospitality that people see here, and you're seeing this with World Cup. If you want to fall in love with America, travel through America. And you are seeing this, and not just Route 66, but my expert opinion would be start with Route 66. But you see all of these stories, and Freddie, if you follow, those of y'all that are watching the World Cup, Freddie. He was actually here in Oklahoma City, going here for a concert. These international tourists have been blown away by the hospitality. I hope that continues. I think what's really interesting to see with America 250, we're going to have a huge party next week, no doubt about it. It's going to be great. I love America. Yay, America. But I think the World Cup and Route 66 has done far more this year about having a conversation and showing hospitality than anything that we're doing with America 250. We're going to bring some really cool boats into the harbor there. and they're going to do some really cool stuff in Philadelphia and New York City. I love it. But it's amazing to see what the World Cup has done and will do over the next 15, 20 days to really show off what America is. And that is, we are a land of immigrants. We're a melting pot on planet Earth. And we should be talking about that, leaning into that, and having conversations in that space.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me. You've said connection, conversation, engagement over and over again. Things that we do when we stop, and it's kind of a juxtaposition, right? Where this is a road,
Yeah.
and it was used to travel the country. In fact, that was the kind of you said freedom, but also a lot of people would say independence. The
Yeah.
independence to just hit the open road and go.
Yep.
But I've found that in my travel, I find connection when I travel, like connection to a place, connection to history, connection to a people. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're pulling from, right?
Yeah.
The connection that happens when we are on the road and actually meeting people that are different than ourselves.
That's right. Getting out of your comfort zone. Route 66 forces you out of your comfort zone a little bit. You know, when you go to a roadside attraction, I assure you these small business owners that own these businesses are going to learn everything they can about who you are and wanting to have a conversation. You know, most of the time when I'm a tourist, if I go down to Florida and sit on the beach, I'm interacting with no one. Now again, I'll put my feet in the sand from time to time. I love that too. But you're not interacting with anybody. You're not, I'm going home. I don't have many stories that I'm actually telling to anybody. Those come when you have experiences like on Route 66. When I met a guy a couple weeks ago at a motorcycle museum right outside of Arcadia, who was almost 100 years old on a Harley with his two sons hitting the entire Route 66. Now, I was a little nervous for this guy because he was in his mid-90s. And I sat there for 30 minutes and I had a conversation about him and his entire life story. You just can't do that in a lot of other places. And that's the good stuff. That is the magic. And I think that's, again, in all of our DNA, no matter where you come from, we were born for interaction. We need to interact. And by the way, if we're not interacting with human beings, bad stuff can happen. That, again, is this better conversation and being proactive and having healthy conversations with people and building friendships. If a person is isolated, and can be co-opted, whether it's on social media and going down very dark places, then bad stuff can happen like what happened here. And I think that's one more reason why opportunities like this, or just any sort of opportunity to connect human beings to other human beings and not lead in an adversarial way or a debate, but just learning about different cultures and people. It's happening in soccer stadiums all across America right now, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see, and it's happening on Route 66.
Yeah. So in the audience today, we have a group of students that are participating in the Federal Bar Association Summer Program.
Okay. Much smarter than me. Yeah.
It's a great group of students. They spend some of their time here, some of the time at the federal courthouse, which is, I mean, you know, was on the other side of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, impacted by 1995. And they also spent some time at the county courthouse. It's a great program, but I can't help but think about how they're receiving this, because I'm sure they have heard over and over again that you have to put your phone down. Opinions on because now if you hit the open road, you can disappear into a device. And so how do we combat that?
I both ways. So, technology can be leveraged for good. We have plenty of Route 66 apps, but at the same time, we have a Route 66 passport that the mayor has right here on the front row, that you can get your real stamp on a real passport at different locations, and people are geeking out on this. So it's a little bit of both. I've learned that, again, if I just am negative about technology, it doesn't really pull people in. So we know we have to do a little bit of both. We know that. Google helped us. They created kind of an interactive online experience as well. We launched that here in Oklahoma City to where you can kind of pick a car and it'll show you, you can go back in time and then it kind of shows you what the road looks like today. So leveraging technology in positive ways to engage kind of the next generation. I'm not against that. We got paper maps too though. We'll do a paper map as well. We've learned this from tourists that you can create the coolest app ever. A lot of these tourists still want something physical in their hand that they can read, they can turn. And it's, by the way, it's not just, again, baby boomers, it runs all generations. So we're still printing a whole lot of stuff too. So we leverage technology where we can. Digital ads have been very successful for us, but we also know that, a roadside billboard, I was talking to the Rock Cafe and they said there's a big group that came in here that run a newspaper in another state, and they saw the billboard that talked about the Rock Cafe. They got off the highway, went, interviewed them, and they got a national story out of it. So you never know what's going to pull somebody in when it comes to technology. So we've just said we're going to do both. We're going to have a full buffet of options for people to use. But when you have to drive, when you're not driving 85 miles an hour, you're driving a little slower. It does give it gives more opportunities to have more conversations because you're not looking at your phone as much.
Well, I love that answer.
Yeah.
So we're going to open it up to questions here in a minute, and if you haven't and you do have a question, write that down on your card. We have staff that'll walk around. They're in the back raising their hands, waving at you. They'll come around, pick up the card, and they'll read your questions, and this allows us to just get through. Make sure we get through more questions. I'm gonna start it off though.
Sure.
You've mentioned several roadside attractions, right? Stops, places to eat, things that make Route 66 special here in Oklahoma. Is there one that you have not mentioned that's kind of a must-see?
You're asking a politician to pick favorites here.
Well, I feel like you're trying to mention them all.
I know. So another great example of a renovation project. It's those renovations that really warm my heart because we meet so many people along Route 66, entrepreneurs or people that have been they live month to month, heck, week to week and not generating a whole lot of resources. Or, a town that's, it's fixing the clock tower moment, for a lot of these towns. That's a reference to Back to the Future, kids, if you've seen it. That's my Back to the Future joke. Fixing the clock tower. There's so many towns that have wanted to fix so many things in their towns, but they've never had the resources to do it. So the Chrysler Tower in Bristow, Oklahoma, would be a must-stop for me. It's the tallest freestanding neon sign in the country. And it was 2 blocks off Main Street in Bristow for the last 40 or 50 years. Just sitting there, just collecting dust and more than dust, just all rusted out. And the Bristow Historical Society has wanted for years and years and decades to be able to move it to Main Street and fix it, which was going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars that they did not have. And when we created this grant program, they said, oh gosh, this is our opportunity. This is our opportunity. So much so that the day that the commissioners were voting on this award, they had and this is Oklahoma, they had a prayer service at the base of the Chrysler Tower to pray for those commissioners, which I just love that kind of story. And God answered their prayers. They received a grant, and I was there the day that we turned the lights back on this Chrysler Tower, and I gave kind of a stump speech in the middle of the main street. They shut the town down for this thing. That's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. And again, life begins at that off ramp off I-44, taking that road into Bristow to go see that sign, and then going to their great Main Street. They've got this cool toy museum and a lot of other stuff. So that's a must stop for me. I would also mention though, Western Oklahoma, Clinton, Oklahoma, there's something called the Western Co-op. Now it's a group of young families that have moved back to their roots in Western Oklahoma, in Clinton. And I love this rural revival that is happening in America today, and it's happening in Oklahoma as well. And there's a lot, just some of the coolest young families that I've met that said, hey, you know what, we're going to move back to Clinton, and we're going to create an art studio, and it's kind of a meetup area for all local people that want to come in and learn a trade or become an entrepreneur. And that's another one that I would mention is really meeting these new entrepreneurs along the road. Because again, I'm handing the baton off to the next lieutenant governor. I'm handing the baton off to the next tourism agency. And they're going to have to communicate and connect with those new entrepreneurs that are going to lead the road for the next 100 years. So Bristow and Clinton would be a couple big stops for me.
Excellent, excellent. Both I have not seen yet.
There you go.
I've added them to my
Good.
list.
I picked good ones then. Yeah.
Do we have questions?
Did Oklahoma do anything to connect to the World Cup to promote Route 66, or has it been mainly by chance?
Yeah, we have. We have a limited budget, right? I mean, I don't have the kind of budget that that state down there to the south of us has. Forget the name of that state, but it's down there. So we have millions of dollars to promote Route 66, and we're amazing time for us, particularly right here in Oklahoma City, right between Kansas City and Dallas, which are big World Cup cities. So the short answer is yes. The Oklahoma Department of Tourism is advertising in those cities. Hey, as you drive from Dallas to Kansas City or from Kansas City to Dallas, stop in Tulsa, stop in Oklahoma City. And again, you had 12 or 13 World Cup tourists that were in this museum this morning, and I hope to some degree because they either saw, again, the museum advertising to them or our Oklahoma Department of Tourism. We certainly are all into the Olympics, I can assure you of that. That's a huge opportunity for us in a couple years to do exactly what the World Cup is doing, because we're going to be pulling so many international communities in for that for the Olympics. There's not a day that goes by that we're not talking about the Olympics.
Okay, and next question. How is it decided what would go on the Route 66 passport?
Oh, tough decisions there. Tough decisions there. So it's a whole lot harder now. So 8 years ago wasn't that hard. It just wasn't. There was still a lot of stuff along Route 66 in Oklahoma 8 years ago, but now we have hundreds, we have thousands of places that could go into that passport. We can't put thousands in there. Now, there is a place in there where you can go to Travelok and see a whole longer list of attractions. But the goal for me from day one, from a tourism strategy, was we've got these guys or gals that come in on a Harley. I don't want them stopping for one day and then staying in Amarillo for the night. I want to make sure that a 12-year-old kid in Wichita, Kansas sees an ad and says, Mom, Dad, I want to go to Oklahoma because that looks really fun. And they can stay at Okana. They can go to all these great restaurants, like a week-long vacation, summer vacation in Oklahoma is the win for me. Like if a kid is telling their parents, I want to do this, that actually looks kind of cool, we win. I want my Harleys too. I want my baby boomers too. But historically in Oklahoma, it's been 1 or 2 days at the most. And then they're off to another state that might have 10 miles or 15 miles of Route 66. You can spend at least 3 to 5 days and certainly a week-long vacation now just on Route 66. You got Tulsa and Oklahoma City as the big urban areas, and then all of these whimsical hallmark towns in between. It writes itself. But we did not have an advertising campaign that was telling that 12-year-old kid in Wichita, Kansas, of why it's cool. We do now. We do now. And so that's the win. That's the win for us.
Do you believe there's a connection between international tourism and falling in love with America and a rise in immigration?
I hope there is. I hope you have international tourists coming to America, and they stay longer and they spend a whole lot more money, so we love that. They'll come over for a month, and they hit a lot of America. It's not just Oklahoma. But I would love nothing more than to hear a story from someone from Japan, China, the Czech Republic, I don't care where it is, saying we loved it so much we started our immigration process because we wanted to move to America and we wanted to move to Oklahoma. We hear a lot of that from Americans. A story I tell all the time, there's a young couple that came up to me about a year ago after I delivered a speech and said, "You were talking about us in your speech." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, we lived in Denver, Colorado during COVID, and we couldn't travel anywhere, but we wanted to go to state parks, and Oklahoma's state parks were still open. Now, our lodges were shut down, but you could go walk in the woods if you wanted to go walk in the woods at our state parks." And they came to Oklahoma. They hit 8 different state parks in about a week and a half, and then they said, "Guess who now lives in Oklahoma?" They loved it so much. And this couple lives in Mustang, Oklahoma. He works for an architectural firm. He can work remotely. So we hear those stories all the time, all the time. But I would love nothing more than to have those international stories of people that felt so welcomed in America that they moved to America and they moved to Oklahoma. I hope into the future we have more and more of those stories.
We call them Okies by choice.
Okies by choice. We love Okies by choice. Even those that are moving from Texas. Yes. And a whole lot more of them are, by the way. Yeah.
Okay, the next question is, have you heard about the Route 66 Peace City project from Stroud?
Key City?
Peace City.
I don't know if we have, Carrie. Carrie Barrick is our Route 66 director inside my office. Peace City.
Yeah.
Well, I love that branding.
We have one of our federal bar students who asked this question.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about it a little bit, or am I putting you on the spot? Okay.
Yeah, give me the scoop.
Oh, I just brought it up because when I was last year for Better Conversations over spring break, the guy who runs the Route 66 Museum in Stroud, he was talking about a new project, and I wonder if it had made headway on the highway program. But
Interesting.
I don't know. I need to call and refresh with him,
Yeah.
but I was wondering if it had made way to you with the tourism and everything.
You know, I have a lot of people that tell me things sometimes, and sometimes a bit. That one I wouldn't have forgotten.
Yeah.
Peace City, Route 66, I would want to know more about that. So that's very easy for us to ask him, because I think I know who you're talking about in Stroud. I would also say about Stroud, you have to go see Stroud at night right now and start at one side of the main street to the other. They have the most neon signs down their main street, I think more than any other small town. It's your whimsical, like the neon experience that you want in a small town America. That is Stroud, Oklahoma today. But no, I'm glad you asked, and I will bring it up. I imagine that they're forming that for what we've been talking about, right? Mm-hmm. They understand that we have an opportunity to capture all of these people that are visiting Stroud and having a better conversation with them about having a healthier world and a healthier United States of America. And I truly believe that the next 100 years of Route 66, that needs to be part of their focus, because they have a responsibility to engage there.
Okay, the last question I have is, what's your favorite restaurant on Route 66?
Another favorite. Well, I got to say Chicken Eddie. If you don't know Chicken Eddie, you haven't been to the Chicken Shack in Arcadia, Arcadia, Oklahoma. And just go in there and say, the Lieutenant Governor told me to come see a Chicken Eddie. It really is some of the best chicken you will have. There's a really great billboard that he has off I-44 now. He was the one that helped branded the 100 miles. They call it the 100 greatest miles of Route 66. Ooh. Now, I can't say that because we have 400 greatest miles of Route 66. But they've kind of branded where we are right here. Edmond's really in on this, Arcadia, all those 100 miles. But go see Chicken Eddie at the Chicken Shack.
Excellent.
He will be so happy that we ended this conversation about Chicken Eddie.
All right. Well, I have one last one.
Yeah.
And it's kind of touching on something you've been dancing all around. The kind of the nostalgic view of the main street of America, and then you also talked about how politically we need to be having better conversations. And so the question is, what can today's sort of political ecosystem learn from Route 66?
Yeah. take fewer calls from your consultants and more calls from your constituents. Is what I would tell you. I'm pretty cynical about the political process today, the amount of money that's involved in the political process today, the retail politics that used to be politics in America and other countries for that matter. We're getting further and further away from that. And that's tough for me to watch. I've been involved in the political arena for the last 25 years. That makes me throw up a little bit in my mouth, but and I've loved it. It's been very good to me. But I've seen it change just over the last 25 years. And again, technology is good in some ways. But taking fewer calls from your consultants that are going to tell you the poll-tested thing for you to say, and getting out of your office and walking down a main street and having a conversation with a business owner or a tourist that is visiting that town is going to give you more insight in what real Americans think and want than taking that phone call from your consultant. And I think we have to get back to that. I hope and pray that we will have leaders that are still going to want to run for political office, from the courthouse to the White House, that will lead that way and will say, listen, I'm going to listen to my constituents. If it means I'm going to lose my race, that's fine. This is only a temporary thing anyway. Wasn't supposed to be a career. It's turned too much into a career for too many people. It was never supposed to be that way. Our founders, talk about conversations we should be having about the 250th birthday. Our founders never wanted it to be that way, never set it up to be that way. It was always taking a few years off from the public or private sector or wherever you are and giving a little bit back to your communities. Whether that's a county commissioner or a mayor or president of the United States, taking a few years off and then returning back to your main streets and back to America. I think we're going to be a much healthier country if we could get back to that. And I think you're able to have those type of conversations on Route 66.
Well, I love that, and here it's hard not to look through the lens of 1995.
Yeah.
But they weren't consultants telling the political establishment what they should be doing in that instance. They jumped into action to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Right, and so I think a lot of it is being connected to the people and doing the right thing, whether it be in a time of tragedy or not.
That's right. Well, and I would say this too, to be even more blunt. We politicians and consultants have a responsibility, particularly in the age of AI. You see some of these television ads that are being run, these political television ads. It's terrifying to me that you can make someone look like they're doing something when it's just it's fake. That's going to have to be addressed, by the way. But even back in 1995, there was hate that was being promoted to help people get elected in different positions. So this isn't a new thing. And I do think we have a responsibility as elected officials at every level of politics to make sure that we aren't promoting something, a direct mail piece, a television ad, that is adding fuel to a fire in a negative way that is going to harm an individual. And that needs to be called out at every step. And for me, the old guy on the block, it's not going to be as effective if it's coming from you. And I point to the next generation. You're going to be the ones that are going to be electing the next leaders of this state and in this nation. And if you stand up and you bring your friends with you, those elected officials, the good ones, will listen to you. If they don't listen to them, you need to kick them out of office. Sorry, I was pretty blunt.
Well, I just want to let everyone know that this was not a paid appearance.
Sure. No, it wasn't. No.
And
I'll do anything for this museum and for Carrie and their team. There's a reason we put this on the license plate. Yes, I'm the one that helped design the new license plate, and we were not going to put iconic images and places of hospitality on our license plate without having the National Memorial. That was the first thing that we started with. I don't even know if I told Carrie that. We put a buffalo on there, and we put a lot of other, we put a Route 66, Pops is on there. But we started with a memorial because when it comes to hospitality and giving space for change to happen, this is it. This is the centerpiece of our state when it comes to that hospitality and changing hearts and minds. And that was the first thing we put on that new license plate.
Again, not a paid appearance.
Not a paid appearance.
So I hope that this is a little bit of a call of action, to action.
Yeah.
I want to tell you about some things we have going. Now, Carrie mentioned we're in the midst of Civic season, and coming up next Wednesday, July 1st, we're going to have the National Conference on Citizenship here to talk about what they do, and I didn't realize this until I started having conversations about how we measure civic health. They've been around since the 1940s, created by Congress to measure civic health, and they're doing a project called the American Conversation Project, and we're going to talk about it here, about how conversation is civic action, but we're also participating in this nationwide conversation. So these are small group around the table, 4 to 7 people, talking about what how they feel about their community, what they think about the world, what their hopes are for the future, and in particular, when they see divides, like what is going to bring us together. And the point of the American Conversation Project is to take the temperature of where we are in the 250th year of our country, and these conversations will be part of a narrative that is collected and preserved in the National Archives. We are the only Oklahoma institution participating, and we feel like Oklahomans need a voice, and we need to be part of this project.
Good.
So you can sign up on our website to participate. We're scheduling them all summer long, and so if next Wednesday doesn't work for you, absolutely, just say I'm interested, and we'll figure it out, right? Both here as well as in your places. We'll come to you, and so if you're part of a civic group, a book club, whatever, we'd love to have a conversation with you, and that'll be happening all summer long. All right, well, I really appreciate you coming for this conversation. Lieutenant Governor, this was an absolute pleasure. I love Route 66, and it's I've only loved it more these last few years as the centennial has approached.
Sure.
So if you would, give a round of applause to yourself for being here, and then to the Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, and if you have a moment, we'd love your feedback. There's a QR code. It takes just 2 minutes to let us know how we're doing and what we do to make it better in the future. Thank you so much for being here.